Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening. We often hear the cries of Akhand Bharat in India. Now, what does Akhand mean? According to the protagonist, it means combining India to pre-partition days. That means India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and some even go to the extent of having Afghanistan or Sri Lanka as a part of it. Well, it seems to be a difficult thing because of the animosity, because of the desire of the leaders to maintain their fiefdoms, because you don't want to go back in history and you want to have your sovereignty. But is this an impossible dream? Even I used to criticize this talk of Akhand Bharat because there are two aspects. One is the antipathy between India and Pakistan. That being there, the people of both the countries would not like to unite, especially the leaders. But look at the larger picture. Now, before I proceed further, let me be very frank. India, the way it's conceived as a Akhand Bharat, was never one. I know some people are going to dub me as a person educated in the British system. No, it's not like that. Look at the history. Even India, apart from Afghanistan and Sri Lanka and parts of Bangladesh, was a conglomerate of different countries. There were at least 20 kingdoms, major kingdoms in India in the old times. There were more than 600 principalities and small kingdoms when India became free. Assam itself, which is the province, now a province of India, had 16 kingdoms. When I say Assam, I cover Assam, Mizoram, Manipur. They were all different. Most of the people imagine that Nepal was a part of India, which it never was. It was always an independent country. Now, the people also assume that Burma and Sri Lanka were parts of India. They were not. What had actually happened was that the British had conquered those areas and they were administering them from India. So the Viceroy was India was concurrently ruling Burma, now called Myanmar, and Sri Lanka. But they were separate entities. The systems are different. So to conceive of Akhand Bharat is something which is beyond the ken of history. But I'm not talking of that. I'm talking of the prevailing political climate. And that militates against such an idea. But I strongly feel that the Indian subcontinent, not the way it was at the time of the Ashoka, when Ashoka was ruling part of North India, Aurangzeb ruling part of North India and part of South India, but not the whole of South India. People talk of the king of Kashmir conquering up to Iran, but then did he conquer even UP? No. So there were different countries, as I said. But the fact remains that there is no harm in combining your resources. It's naive to make a case when polarization in the different countries, identity-based violence and threats of war between two major countries are looming. But this is a futuristic outlook and it's not new. Multiple times since the partition of the subcontinent, has been made that they should combine. Mahatma Gandhi certainly had this idea in mind. Once adamant not to see the partition in his lifetime, Gandhi finally came to terms with the partition and accepted it. But till his death, he believed that despite separation, the countries of Indian subcontinent can live as brothers, which they have never done. He said we may take it as the physical division of the country, but our hearts are true, we can behave as if they had not been partitioned. Even the father of the Indian constitution, Ambedkar, made a similar statement. And when he said, isn't there enough that is common in both Hindus and Muslims, which if developed is capable of molding them into one people? Nobody can deny that there are many modes, manners, rites, customs, which are common to both. Nobody can deny that. But the usage on the religious lines that does divide India and Muslims can be bridged. The question is, which one should be emphasized? Obviously, it doesn't make pragmatic sense to make the whole of India as one political body by erasing the border. But if we do, and we have before us that each country can maintain its separate identity and yet be a part of it. It can be a confederation, if not a federation, where the internal affairs remain with the country, but certain things like currency, foreign affairs, defense, industrial development can be common. Let's consider the realities. India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, they share the borders. But if you look at the trade, it's minimal. India has more trade with the West, with Africa. Pakistan has more trade with China. Even same is about Myanmar. But if the trade, which should be the first step, is open, the border should be open for free trade between these 5-6 countries, then things can be much better. I have crisscrossed LOC trade points in Poonch and Uri a few years ago, and I could find that this cross-border trade was wrapped up with bureaucratic red tape and political apathy. So think of the common resources, the Himalayas, the mountain range, the rivers that crisscross the subcontinent. But due to lack of collaboration, most of these resources are underexploited. They are exploited, but they are not fully utilized. Optimum utilization is not there. Then look at it, how much the disproportionate expenses we incur in GDP on arms and armaments. If there was no animosity, the expenses of the two countries alone would be enough to promote the lifestyle not only of the two countries but of the 6 countries. And I envisage a confederation to begin with of Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Sri Lanka. And what would happen? They would have enough resources to fight poverty, to fight illiteracy, to fight other things. So, the historical baggage and psychology of the need of an enemy to keep national unity has to be removed. Now, SARC was set up with the high hopes and it has failed. And main failing is because the main players, India and Pakistan, and sometimes Bangladesh, seldom prioritize the larger goal of the subcontinent. It's a political egoism in this case, and that triumphs over the real issue. Now, other countries like China or USA, they see opportunities in these rivalries. During the Cold War era, if you remember, the major power used subcontinent as pawns in the superpower rivalry. And this rivalry now has moved to the east. China is using that rivalry and is using Pakistan against India. And USA definitely wants to use India against China. So India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka collaboration will not only help strengthen their economies, and of course I should add Bhutan and Nepal also in this. So Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar and Bangladesh. So taken together, the subcontinental collaboration will have both economic and political dividends. United together, they can emerge as a power bloc in the world. And you don't need to be a power bloc only to conquer others or to make others feel afraid. You can be an economic power. And you can be ethical leaders. Certainly cooperation is not an easy job. Let's be very clear. Keeping in mind the mistrust that has been there all the time. But if there is political willingness and a vision of a united India subcontinent, then there can be countries that can forge unity. Obviously, one doesn't call for a political merger or even a kind of federation, no way. I would say call it a confederation. So you have got limited sovereignty for the constituents. They have their own policies, they have their own, but within the country there is A, free trade, B, no war or no armies. Your army should be a combined war. So while the free trade would be there, the international trade would be a subject of common policy. Currencies can be different, or there can be one currency for the whole continent. And it not be an Indian currency, you can call it, give it a neutral name. All the countries can agree to shelve contentious issues for some time. Let's say there's an embargo for 20 years on all issues of conflict, whether it's the Indus River, whether it's Kashmir, whatever, whether it's a Bangladesh issue, conclaves. So for 20 years there is a quarantine of all questionable, contentious issues. Then opening up the religious shrines. This Kartarpur opening is a great start. So why cannot you open not only Kartarpur but Panja Sahab and Nankana Sahab as well in Pakistan? Why can't you open Hazrat and Haji Ali Ajmer Sharif for the Pakistanis and for the Bangladeshis? In other words, there will be two passports. One they can use for their own purpose, but they can be given two passports, or rather, the same passport can be accepted, no visas. So borders would be erased. There will be a policing, all right, to protect against smuggling and laundering. But then that's different. There are police lines even on the borders within provinces. So this free flow of the religious pilgrimage, the free flow of trade, this will foster easy access for the medical treatment. Why should? And then there have been cases when the people suffering in Pakistan got the treatment here in India. But look at the paperwork, look at the hassle. If it should be simply a matter of purchasing a ticket and traveling to India to get a medical treatment, or for a guy here in getting married in India and going to Swat for honeymoon, should not be a matter of applying for the visas, getting permissions, reporting to the police, and so on. You can have a common program to address the pandemics, like the COVID pandemic. Develop a joint front on the climate change with other steps to build mutual trust. On a long-term project, they can also work on phasing down tensions by making borders demilitarized. These steps will not be possible if one country follows the rules and other violates them. Perhaps as a first step, they can work together to develop some sort of Indian subcontinental charter, the way the EU charter is, the way even the UN charter is. And the guidelines are laid down in that chapter, and follow the principle. Rotate the office every 2 or 3 years. Why should India have a monopoly of all the bosses? No. For first 2 years, say, it's Pakistan. Next 2 years, Bangladesh. Next 2 years, Sri Lanka. Next 2 years, India and Nepal, and so on. But equal opportunity to all. Has force, military force, solved any conflict till now? No. And it will not resolve the conflicts in future. There is no path to peace. Peace is a path. Cooperation, collaboration. No mechanical arrangements to realize the subcontinental unity will not be successful alone. No. Superficial dialogues, politicking, egos will not help realize the goal. The effort must be genuine and emerge from a deeper psychological understanding of unity and brotherhood in the subcontinent. I visited Pakistan a couple of times and I found unbounded affection and love. Unity is the heart and springs from love. The foreign organism, and I am referring to British rule, has been living on us and lives by the absence of this love, by division. Is the divide and rule still has permeated our consciousness and perpetuates the condition of the existence by making us look to it as the center of the life. Why can we not accept the saffron scarf with hijab at the same time? What's the problem? What we need is that there has to be variance of the outward outlook. Would you believe if I were to tell you that I had more Eid as a kid from my Muslim uncles and aunts? By my uncles and aunts, I mean friends of my father, they would talk, and every Eid I used to be there at their place. And there was once another couple of Hindu friends, number of them of course, and I would have great laddus and kheer over there. So on the one side I would have sevia, on the other side I would have kheer, and things would be much better. I could never differentiate between Hindus and Muslims, or sects. So you have got to divide the variance by means of outward outlook. Regard as the fountain of life. And in that way, I think, if the people want, and the people want it, it's only the politicians who are the stumbling block. So the British left a continent more than 8 decades ago. But the psychology of othering the other persists. It must go towards realizing the vision of a united Indian subcontinent. And this subcontinent can be, as I said, a force to within it. Let us start with the climate change combination. Let us start with the open border. Let us start with the open trade. Let us start with the visa-free travel between the two countries. Let it then go to demilitarization of borders. I'm not saying demilitarize absolutely, but demilitarize borders. And then have a sort of a confederation Each country administers itself as a province would, but there are no barriers, and that would be a day of celebration because you would see emergence of a new world order, a new global order, where this subcontinent will play the most dominating and guiding role. And that's what people wish. Are the politicians willing? That's $1 million question. But people, if they want, they can make these politicians listen to them and say, enough. We had enough fights. No, we don't want it. We are brothers on all sides of the borders. Padma and Ganga, they will be together. We will not let the Satluj and the Indus be divided. From Karakoram, from Hindu Kush onwards towards the Vietnam borders, we are one. And that way lies the salvation. Think about it. Thank you.